I see the born of no return. Just ahead now, can't you see we're rushing for the end? I see the point of no return. Now see the point of no return. It's just ahead.
Hello, I'm Gary Hendershot. It's Monday, September 23rd, 2013, and once again, I'm barking at the moon. Now, can we find anything in common between the many mass shooters that have been in the news over the last few years? It's really kind of hard to say. I mean, by and large, they seem to be disaffected young white males who are described by people who know them as loners. Oftentimes, they seem to be into rather violent video games, a pastime which probably describes most of the 20-something and 30-somethings out there. We have had the odd ringer in the group from time to time, a fellow named Cho, who I've heard described as both Korean and Chinese. I believe he was Korean, was the perpetrator of the mass shooting at Virginia Tech in Central Virginia, while my daughter was going to school there. 32 people lost their lives in that shooting, and it stands as one of the greatest losses of life in a mass shooting America has yet seen. Well, onto the stage comes a fellow named Aaron Alexis, who kind of breaks with a lot of the stereotypes. I mean, he's a black man, he's Buddhist, doesn't really fit the mold. Now, apparently, he did like the odd video game. So, perhaps, there's something to this video game thing as the central theme that compares all these shooters. It's really hard to say. I will say that, I've heard a lot of rumors that this was some kind of psyop, that this guy was MK Ultra, and it was all one of these planned things to go. Well, considering the narrative coming out of government and media of late, if the guy had been brown-skinned, maybe Syrian or Iranian, and had done the dirty deed with an M16, AR-15, AK-47 variant, which seem to be the weapons that they want to demonize right now, I could probably buy into that theory. But from everything we've found out, both from mainstream and alternative news, it appears this fella just flat went postal. He's had rough time with employment situations. He was kind of down on his luck, feeling like he didn't have anything left to lose, and he just flat lost it. Not sure we can make anything more than that out of it. Although Mr. Alexis and 12 others are dead. because of his actions. Now, of course, because there was a shooting involved, the usual players, led by Diane Goldman Berman Feinstein, born Diane Goldman in 1933. She's 80 years old. She is the oldest sitting senator. But yeah, she's out there saying, "Oh, we got to do something. We need to do something for the children. And the only thing they can think of to do is to blame the firearm, an inanimate object that, without more than just a little assistance, couldn't hurt anything." So instead of looking at the real causes, the issues that would drive someone to think they had no choice but to grab a gun and just go shoot a bunch of people, it's easier just to blame the gun. Because, that's something we can point to. It's just too hard to consider other possibilities. On the 19th of September, just Thursday last week, at least one gunman with what, of course, was described by the media as a military-grade assault rifle, more than likely a semi-automatic of some sort, fired at least 16 shots in a place called Cornell Square Park, where a pickup basketball game was going. Fired at least 16 times. Wounded a 3-year-old boy and about a dozen other people. It appears that most everybody in this shooting is going to survive, so one of two things: either the shooter did not really have a serious target, or was just a terrible shot, or he was shooting at somebody else and missed, and like I say, was just a terrible shot. Some are saying it was an absolute miracle that there were no fatalities. But the thing I would have you remember is that Chicago has some of the most daunting gun control laws in the entire country. Now, you would think gun control, if it worked, would certainly be working in Chicago, where they have some of the most restrictive laws in the nation. But Dianne Feinstein and Barry Soetoro Obama seem to think that the best way to approach the problem of mass shootings is to go after guns that they don't particularly like. Now, they acknowledge the fact that the Constitution does indeed guarantee the right of individuals to keep and bear arms for their individual personal protection of their lives, their property, and the lives and property of others. But the Founding Fathers never anticipated semi-automatic weapons with 30-round magazines that would just commonly be used for nothing other than to mow down innocent children playing basketball. Unless perhaps the shooting in Chicago might have been gang-related. Unless perhaps these heavy-duty video game using crazed lone wolves, maybe had some other issue that might have contributed to their unfortunate mental disturbance. Now, I never claim to be a journalist. I look up to journalists. I mean, journalists are out on the street doing, in-depth interviews. They're collecting the data. They're answering the all-important questions. Who? What? When? Why? How? Where? Okay? Who is a journalist? Who is a journalist? I refer to myself as a social commentator because I read the works that numerous journalists have produced, and I pick and I choose and I say, this issue here really pisses me off. This one here is really funny. This one here is really stupid. Well, in the stupid category is, once again, my nominee for the most ridiculous woman since Hillary Clinton, Dianne Feinstein, who apparently thinks that unless you meet her specifications, you cannot be a journalist. Because you see, the way this woman has twisted the first 4 amendments to the Constitution, first 4 items in the Bill of Rights, not privileges, rights, not something you can regulate it, rights, not something you can license, tax, or do anything else with. These are rights granted by the Creator that a fence were drawn around saying the Congress shall not. Okay? What part of shall not do you not understand, Dianne? Frankly, if I want to write an article calling you stupid, publish it on 3x5 cards, and tack them to every telephone pole between your home and the Capitol building, I have the journalistic right to do so. And about all you can do about it is sit there quietly, mumbling, and cash your big fat paycheck. Do you understand me, Ms. Goldman Feinstein? The government has no business determining who the heck is a journalist. As a matter of fact, noted blogger Matt Drudge had this to say on his Twitter the other day. Comments from Senator Feinstein yesterday on Who's a Reporter were disgusting, adding that a 17-year-old blogger is as important a journalist as Wolf Blitzer. Fascist, he declared. Thank you, Matt Drudge. I don't think I could have said it any better myself. Moving right along. Trying to find commonality. Yep, I think I threw that one away too soon. Yep, tossed that article over my shoulder just a little too soon. In a report that came out on September 19th of 2013, just a few days ago, the FBI calls half of American citizens potential terrorists. See, this war on terrorism has turned out to be a real money-making proposition. It's kind of like the war on drugs, man. You got local sheriff's department, just hoping to find, the little bitty roach of a joint in your car so they can confiscate your car, any money you got in your pocket, and anything else. Plus, throw you into a for-pay prison. No, this isn't a banana republic, like Obama says. We're not. We're much more sophisticated than any banana republic. But this war on terrorism has turned into such a money machine that they're looking for terrorists anywhere. And right now, if you have misgivings, say, about the events of 9/11, okay? You're in something close to 65-70% of the population. You could be a terrorist. Now, if you happen to believe that, there was this thing called Operation Northwoods or Operation Gladio, and you really believe that, the government would do such a thing, you might be a terrorist. Now, what they're saying, here's the FBI memo entitled Potential Indicators of Terrorist Activities Related to Sleepers. Ooh, see, you're a sleeper agent for a terrorist cell. If you happen to have misgivings about 9/11 or, Operation Northwoods or Operation Gladio or anything else that, you think the government might have done that was naughty, see, you're looking a lot like a guy with a beard who lives in a cave in Tora Bora and has a cell phone and a laptop and runs terrorist operations all over the world. So, what you have to realize is that your government looks at you not just with contempt, not just as a simple source of revenue, but they look at you as being a potential threat. So you want to know what a terrorist looks like? Well, next time you're looking in the mirror, just think, you may just be looking at a terrorist. Consider. And as always, make up your own damn mind. Now I can throw that one away. Used to be, a long time ago, that the Teamsters Union was one of the strongest and most politically active organizations in the entire world. Now, the Teamsters Union kind of got infiltrated by organized crime, and they were involved in a lot of dirty dealings. And yeah, they did do kind of like what the bankers up on Wall Street did. They were buying politicians and extracting favors and hiring hookers to get politicians and judges and so forth into compromising positions, so they could then, blackmail them to get their way. Bottom line is, they figured out that the game was rigged and that it was played dirty, and they decided to get in and play every bit as dirty as the rest of them. Well, The problem is the organized crime task forces that the FBI and other policing agencies put together are not the least bit interested in such activities committed by major financial institutions or big corporations that use their money, their influence, and their knowledge of government officials' perversities to get special treatment. But, when an organization made up of just common, useless eaters who do nothing more than drive a truck, when they start getting involved in that, well, the organized crime units stomped on them with both feet. There was a lot of turmoil back in the 50s and the 60s. Well, the Teamsters Union today is not nearly as strong and powerful as it was many years ago. And frankly, in a lot of ways, it's a mere shadow of its former glory. But truckers are still some of the last of the cowboys left in the United States of America. Most of the truck drivers out there nowadays drive a company rig. Okay, they work for one of the big outfits. The truck is provided to them. They basically run a schedule. They pick up a load here, they drop it there on orders from a big corporation. But there are still independent truckers who are owner-operators. They own their truck. They hire themselves out to the highest bidder for the best price they can possibly get. You can tell them on the road because their trucks are always just a little bit sweeter than those company rigs. These are the boys who put a little extra chrome and pizzazz on their truck. They're proud of that vehicle. They've paid a lot of money for it. It is the source of their revenue. And for them, that truck is a piece of pride, not just a tool of the trade for them to ply their business. But, because they are independent truckers, they are small business people. It's just them, their truck, and the tax man. And here lately, the tax man's not been real kind to small business of any sort. Well, the truckers are a little bit better organized, probably because of their history of being associated with the Teamsters Union. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, the spirit of the 60s is still alive. We recently had darn near 1 million motorcycles ride through Washington, D.C. And on the 11th, 12th, and 13th of October, we're going to have truck drivers riding on Washington. Their intent is to shut it down for 3 days. They're going to park their vehicles and walk away from them for 3 days. Now, in many respects, this kind of reminds me of a thing I'm involved with the United We Strike campaign. We ask 1 day a month, the 15th of each month, do nothing. Don't watch TV, don't buy anything, don't go to work, don't drive your car, don't do nothing. Just hunker down. Okay? Just 1 day a month. See if we can get participation for that. Well, the truckers are, they're expanding that. They're doing 3 days. 3 days. The 11th, 12th, 13th of October. Show your support. Do likewise. You want to get out on the streets of Washington, D.C. and cheer them on? It's your prerogative. You want to just stay home and do nothing in solidarity with the truckers' strike? Please do so. Do not buy. Do not comply. Ask why. It's just 3 days. Okay? It is just 3 days. At some point or another, it's going to have to be 3 months. A national strike would get their attention, would force them to begin a dialogue on the issues that are important to average Americans, instead of the issues that are important to those who drop by every now and then with a fat envelope full of Benjamins to make sure that the sweet deal gets passed. As with all things, consider and make up your own mind. Well, I think that's going to be it for me barking at the moon. Did have another little article here about how Obama wants the Congress to just give up their oversight on this Trans-Pacific Partnership Treaty. That thing, by the way, is nasty. Ross Perot warned us about, the North American Free Trade thing, that NAFTA. Ross Perot said there was going to be a giant sucking sound of jobs leaving the country, and he was right, wasn't he? Well, I can tell you right now, this TPP thing, there is going to be a hurricane of what's left of the jobs leaving. Okay? The middle class in the United States is doomed. Get used to it. Start thinking seriously about ways to reinvent yourself. If you've got a nice middle class position right now, you won't for long. You might want to think about, what do I know? What can I do that I can sell to my neighbor for a living wage? Because the idea of working at a middle class, middle management job is just about dead. One quick little rant before I shut it down for the evening. When I got out of college, back in the late 60s, early 70s, first job I took was with a division of General Motors. This division of General Motors manufactured spark plugs, air cleaners, fuel pumps. It was the AC spark plug division of General Motors. And I can tell you that, I was, I guess, in lower management. I'd been hired in as a, lower managerial type of person. I basically moved papers from one pile to the other, processed orders, that type of thing, And I met the big shots at AC Spark Plug. And all of those fellas came up through the ranks. They had, one point or another, done something in the manufacturing. They had done something, and they were carmen. Okay? These were carmen who had worked their entire life in the automobile business. Later, I met some of the upper management of General Motors itself, the parent corporation. And once again, everybody who ran General Motors in the late 60s and early 70s, right up to the president of the corporation, were carmen. All they knew was building cars. Yeah, they fought and argued with the unions and tried to get wage concessions here or there. That was their job. And the union guys, they argued with the management because that was their jobs. The idea was, everybody was trying to negotiate a deal that was acceptable to everybody involved. Okay? But bottom line is, whether you worked on the assembly line or you worked in the ivory tower, you were a car man. You wanted to get automobiles built and into the consumer's hands that were of good quality for a fair price. And if you were with General Motors, you certainly wanted those cars to be of better quality and at a better price than Ford or Chrysler. Okay? Now, what killed the automobile industry in the United States was not the Japanese. It wasn't the Koreans. It wasn't NAFTA or GAFTA or any other It was the MBA. It was Harvard University and their Masters of Business Administration program. Because all of a sudden, the owners of the big companies like General Motors, the shareholders, who decide who's going to be the president of the corporation, who's going to be the upper management of the corporation, they say, maybe what we need to do is, instead of hiring these car people, maybe what we need to do is we need to hire Harvard MBAs to run the business. All of a sudden, it became much more important to deliver on the bottom line than deliver a good product. And if instead of building an automobile in Detroit, you could build it in Mexico, or you could build it in China, or you could build it in Korea just this much cheaper, seemed like a good trade-off. And the stockholders loved it. All the big investment houses, oh, this is great. Until they realized that they'd killed the goose that laid the golden eggs. Because there was a time when somebody working on an assembly line in a General Motors plant could afford to buy the automobile he made. Today, average automobile is in the $35,000, $40,000 price range. There are many people who cannot afford to buy a new car. It's just out of reach. Used to be a new car cost roughly 6 months of a person's wage, maybe 4. If you were a high roller, it might cost you 3 months wage. Nowadays, an automobile costs darn near a year's wage. Average folks, you talk $40,000 for an automobile. That's what a lot of people make in a year. So you want to know what happened to the manufacturing? You want to know what happened to all the good jobs? You want to know who to blame? Harvard University, MBA program. All the other big universities followed suit. And nowadays, all your big corporations are not run by people who know and love the product that the company makes. They're run by MBAs who have much more concern about the bottom line than producing a good product at a fair price. That's what it's all about. Welcome to America in the 21st century. Well, I'm done barking at the moon for today. We'll see you again next week. Good night, y'all.
Calling out to you. Won't you turn, won't you turn